Cocaine-addicted rats, for example, will opt instead for sugar water in lieu of the cocaine. That's how strong of an addictive pull sugar has.
Welcome to the What Up Doc University podcast, your number one resource for total body wellness. Here's your host, Dr. Mike.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the What Up Doc University podcast. This is Dr. Mike coming back with you with another great episode with a special guest today. It's Dr. Lori Shemek. Dr. Lori is a nutrition and weight loss expert, a best-selling author, and she specializes in weight loss resistance, as a lot of people always shout out to me, Doc, I just can't seem to lose the weight. She shows people how to spot these sneaky foods that create weight gain. We all know that there's these sneaky foods to kick the sugar addiction to the curb and shift from eating the wrong foods to the exact foods that burn fat. She's been featured on Huffington Post, alongside Dr. Oz, and she's a contributor to Fox News as a health expert on the ABC Today Show and Good Morning Texas. She's also the author of a book called FATflammation, a best-selling author of Fire Up Your Fat Burn, and a leading authority on inflammation and its role in weight loss, preventing disease, and optimizing health. And we all know how important a role inflammation plays in the disease process. So we'd like to welcome Dr. Lori to the show. Dr. Lori, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for that. It's nice to be here and an honor. So thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with us about your story, about your knowledge, and helping the world become a better place.
Thank you.
Let's start with a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Well, it all goes back, as they all do, to when I was a child. And I was raised by a single mother, and I have two younger brothers. And my mother was, most of the memories, in fact, I have of my mother are of her mostly ill with one thing or another constantly. And my mother's health deteriorated as I grew. And so most of the care of my two brothers was left to me. So I remember, my mother smoking constantly. She smoked over a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. She was very overweight. She was, as you can imagine, very stressed because she was the sole caretaker of three young children, and with no husband, no family support. She was essentially on her own with little money. So my mother's diet was terrible. She didn't take care of herself, and she was ill. So as her health continued to dwindle, one day I walked into her room and I saw sitting on her dresser was a bottle of vitamins. And I was ecstatic because I thought, here she is. She's finally going to take care of her health. And as a little girl, I just was very happy because that meant we were going to have our mother back. And unfortunately, and sad to say, that bottle just sat there collecting dust. However, every day I'd go in to check, and she never touched it. And even more sad is that my mother passed away at the very young age of 36, and she left behind three young children with nowhere to go. And it was at her memorial service that I decided that she didn't have to die. She could have made other choices. And I remember then thinking that I wanted to help people realize that they do have choice in life. And that really is what it all boils down to, is choice. It really is about the choices we make, the information that we get, and acting upon all of that. And so that is what I decided to do. So instead of nutrition, which is where my love was later down the road, I went into the helping profession of psychology. So I became a counselor. I helped families feel better and do better in life and make different choices. And I learned very quickly because I was into nutrition, that I would create these nutritional analysis for them and tell them exactly what they needed to be eating, where they were missing. And it was amazing to watch their mental health change for the better. Even their children's lives change for the better. So it became very apparent to me what I really needed to do was to combine the two. And that's exactly what I did. So that is where I am right now, helping people change their diet, change their weight, and create a better outlook, if you will, in life.
So what do you see as far as the emotional ties to food that people have, and how do you help them make that change? Because I know a lot of people, and this is what I struggle with patients in my practices.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to make these changes, but there's this huge emotional attachment to food as as something that will help them, and when we all know that there's this food addiction, but there's this emotional attachment to letting go of something that they know themselves that's not helping
Mm-hmm.
them. And so how do you get around that?
Well, it's interesting because most people, like you mentioned, do understand what's going on for the most part. Okay. Um, and this is why diets don't work. What you want to focus on instead is the foundation of creating weight loss and better health is to change your habits and your behaviors. Okay. Changing your habits will change your behaviors. Changing your behaviors consistently will then create habit. And so that's really important. I always like to focus on triggers in people's lives. And I like to make sure that they're very aware of what's going on. The research out there right now there's an abundance of it showing that mindfulness, which we all used to go, oh, yeah, 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 right? We now know is critical to creating better health and especially weight loss. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So triggers are an important component to emotional eating, very important. And as we all know, we've been there, we've been bored, distracted. We just go searching for something just to alleviate the boredom, say. And it
Yes.
happens really easily. It happens so easily that many people are munching away before they are even aware that they're bored, or if they ever are aware, or that they're angry or frustrated or sad, even. Any type of emotion that you don't want to feel, or even if you're happy, does elicit some type of emotional eating for most people. So it's important to know that our brain really doesn't like to think. Okay, so what it's just much easier for it to just go to the emotional area of the brain and not the executive um, portion of the brain. Okay, which is the prefrontal cortex. And because we like things so easily, we're not aware. But once we become aware and we are consistent and mindful about well, yes, I am sad. And yes, I am right now eating because I'm not very happy. That sets up an awareness. It sets up a mindfulness. And then you get that executive action area of the brain working. Okay. So instead of reacting, you're creating an appropriate response. And this is what you want to do ahead of time is start to figure out what type of response you're going to create. So you want to know that you want to essentially plan ahead with a response when you start heading towards a kitchen.
So do you have them figure out their triggers ahead of time and then figure out
Yes,
the response?
absolutely, yes. That's exactly right. So once you figure out what your triggers are, and I actually talk about this in the book a little bit. Once you figure out what your triggers are, you then are pretty much aware of what sets you off. And it can be food as well. Food can certain foods, can I have my trigger foods as well? So what is my pre-planned attack on that is I don't keep it in the house.
Ah,
And the same
very
goes
simple.
for, right, the so if something sad happens or something and you react to that, or you're depressed and you know that your comfort food is in the house, you don't keep that there. That's very important to note.
Because not a lot of people really realize that food can become like just as bad as a drug. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. Food, in fact, is a drug to a degree, to a very large degree. We can take sugar, for example, and I'm sure you've heard this. Uh, these studies have they've been doing showing that cocaine addicted rats, for example, will opt instead for sugar water in lieu of the cocaine. That's how
Mm.
strong of an addictive um, pull sugar has, and not to mention its ravaging effects on the body. So yes, food can be addictive. People are addicted to food, and to stop that addiction is exactly what you said, is to become aware of your trigger foods, practice mindfulness, which is essentially awareness consistently. And when you do that, you change your behavior. You're creating a habit that will change behavior and set up an automatic response in the future so that you're not going to the food for comfort or release.
So what are some responses that you guide and coach people to do and making those changes? So say like, a common one is turning towards chocolate or
Hmm.
something like that and saying, okay, I'm not I'm taking it out of the house.
Hmm.
I know my trigger. I know what I'm going to turn to. What do I do to replace it?
Well, I like to use a couple techniques. One is an old one that people use to stop smoking, but it's very effective. And it essentially, if you say, for example, you're sitting there and all of a sudden you have a craving for something, you snap a rubber band that's around your wrist,
Hmm.
and it's literally stops the craving for most people. Also, at the same time you do that, I have people get up and leave the environment where the craving started. Okay, so if you're sitting there, you're watching TV, you get a craving for chips, snap the rubber band, walk into another room, and do something that will distract you. That is really important. This confuses the brain a bit. So it stops that within a minute, the craving for that food or whatever it is, whatever addictive component you have going on. And if once you do this and you're consistent with it, it will help stop this addictive cycle, if you will, this vicious cycle that happens. And emotional eating is unfortunately a sad situation for a lot of people, because for if they're eating or they're overeating certain foods, they feel bad about themselves.
Mm.
And it really does add more to what's going on. So they're eating, they're gaining weight, they're not feeling so good about themselves. I have clients that tell me they would eat and eat and eat, feel so bad about themselves, so guilty, and their self-esteem plummeted, and yet they'd eat some more because they felt so bad. It's essentially like my mother did. She threw her hands up in the air and she said, "This is my lot in life, and these are the cards I've been dealt." Instead of saying, okay, I deserve better than this. I deserve to have optimal health. I deserve to be as lean as I choose to be. And instead of succumbing to this vicious cycle.
So it's finding a purpose is what you're trying to say, right?
Right. Yeah. Essentially, it's about making the choice and valuing yourself.
Mm.
When don't throw the hands up in the air, right? It's more about changing the mindset. That is really key. So, a lot of people don't know if they're hungry or they're emotionally hungry. Some people they haven't learned yet to be so mindful or aware of their body cues. But once you start paying attention, am I really hungry, or am I bored? Or am I sad because my boss yelled at me, or angry at my brother for something? And so what is a good key tip is to ask yourself if you'd eat raw broccoli right now. And if the answer is no, then it means a myriad of different emotional things. Okay. That is something for you to become more conscious and mindful about, and to figure out what is it that is, I definitely don't want broccoli right now. Definitely not raw broccoli. No. But, so why do I want to distract myself with eating? What is it that's going on? And those are questions that are very important to answer, because once you do that, you're on the road. You're on the road to better health, better weight loss, and more.
So let's talk a little bit about the book,
Sure.
FATflammation. Now, what what have you been finding as far as the role inflammation plays in obesity and these other chronic degenerative diseases?
Well, for one, it is the core cause of weight gain, inflamed fat cells. Okay.
Okay.
So when you have inflamed fat cells, they are like little factories. We have about roughly 75 million of them. And when they're healthy, they are releasing stored fat. They're releasing fat the way it should be, not stored fat, but fat the way it should be to be used for energy. Okay. But when the fat cell is unhealthy, it is actually storing fat and not letting it go.
Mm.
And so when this happens, a very low level of inflammatory molecules are being emitted. And this circulates throughout the body, and it sets up a metabolic reaction that causes a slowdown in the metabolism. And this means more weight is being packed into that fat cell. And it means more weight gain and inflammation. It becomes a vicious cycle, actually. So you can think of your fat cells as these little factories that are spewing out inflammatory molecules 24/7. And this is important because a lot of people are wondering, well, why do I feel so crummy? You
Hmm.
know, why do my joints hurt? Why? Because we have inflammation, and this inflammation, low level, circulating throughout the body. And it's not any different than having low level inflammation set up somewhere else in the body, such as the arterial wall, for
Hmm.
example. You'll have an area on the wall of the artery that begins to emit low level inflammation, eventually resulting in plaque. Well, we have here with silent inflammation, again, this is just like any other inflammatory reaction. It's an immune response in the body that is creating this weight gain. And people, especially belly fat emits a very high amount of these inflammatory molecules. And in fact, it's unfortunately one of the most stubborn areas for people as well.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very important to take care of your weight, take care of the inflammation in your body. 75% of all people are walking around with low level inflammation and they don't even know it. So a lot of resistant weight gain is tied up with liver health, okay, and gut health. And I write about both of those in my book, How to Fight FATflammation. So your liver is your number one fat burning organ.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's not doing its job effectively, when it's being when there's an enormous amount of sugar one is ingesting, which most Americans do, you're glycating or caramelizing the tissue of the liver. So it's not detoxing the body the way it should be, and it's not doing its job at burning fat the way it should be. So when people tell me, they say, I'm frustrated with my weight. I'm exercising an hour a day. I'm eating whole wheat bread. Dr. Lori. And, not that they don't realize that a lot of
Hmm.
whole wheat bread out there has an enormous amount of sugar in it,
Oh,
right?
tons.
Yeah. So it's those things that really are important to note. Your gut health, again, is very important as well in weight loss.
Interesting you talk about the whole wheat bread thing and
Hmm.
about, you know, a lot of people, they have good intentions, right?
Right.
And good intentions of becoming healthier. And we've seen that the nation has been on, well, for the past couple decades, right? This fat-free diet. We don't want to eat fat because we think it makes us fat. And now instead of eating the white Wonder Bread, we're eating the whole grain, wheat bread. And then people are finding out, hey, this isn't good for us either. And then people kind of just throw their hands up in the air, like you were saying earlier,
Hmm.
and say, look, I don't even know what's right. There's so much conflicting information out there. What do you advise people to do in that situation?
That's a very good point because many people are taking their cues from, say, um, there are those out there that aren't credible in terms of the information they're spewing. So a lot of times they'll say, okay, Wonder Bread is fine as long as it has whole wheat in it. Well, a lot of that junk has a lot of sugar in it too. So it's very important if you are going to eat, let's just use bread for example, whole wheat, then it's important to make sure there isn't any sugar in that bread. But two slices of whole wheat bread in the majority of cases can raise your blood sugar level by 2 tablespoons of sugar can do. And that is why I really stress that people look at what they're putting into their bodies. And that means they have to get familiar with what's inside these foods. And once you do that, once you start looking at labels, reading what's in them, it won't be very long before you are actually, you won't have to pick it up and look. You'll pretty much know what's in that food. And that's where the fun begins. Unless it's a new food product, then you must look. But other than that, you're good to go. And it won't take much time for you to go shopping. I know there are people that I run into that just love to look at labels anyway, go figure, but they do.
What's your take on fat-free diets?
I unfortunately feel so bad for those that believe in them because they're not creating optimal health with them. And they, just like you mentioned, they believe they're doing the right thing, but it's again, it's poor education, and that isn't their fault. In fact, there's a lot of things that have, in terms of nutrition, that are not one's fault. It is a large the responsibility lies with the information that's being spewed by the media and things of that nature. Now, the low fat craze, non-fat, is actually part of what we're seeing in terms of the obesity and weight gain epidemic that we're seeing, and that's because people, just like they count calories, they count fat grams. And it's not about the calories. It's not about the fat grams. It's about the quality of the food you're eating. So let's take
Hmm.
broccoli, for example. A 100 calorie candy bar is metabolized vastly different than 100 calories of broccoli. Okay. We all know that. We know broccoli's healthy. We know the candy bar isn't. But why? It's because of a complex series of events that takes place within the body when you eat both things. The sugar from the candy bar sets you up for high blood sugar, inflammation, and more. And the broccoli, on the other hand, sets you up for optimal health due to the phytochemicals in it, the fiber, and it actually helps reverse fat cell inflammation. So when you eat specific foods, which I've created a 3-week plan that actually does do this with every meal, these foods actually help reverse the inflammation within the fat cell so that the fat cell begins to then release stored fat the way it's supposed to, shrinking that cell. And as I mentioned, a healthy cell is about the size of a period on the end of a sentence, right? An unhealthy fat cell is bloated with sugar, with fat, with arachidonic acid from eating too much omega-6 fats. And the fat cells get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what we don't want. We want to shrink them.
Mm. And that's what a lot of the nation is struggling with, right?
Right. Exactly. Right. And so what you want to do is we are all a product of our environment. And those that are listening to this, this interview right now are creating an environment of health. Okay. So that is what I advise people to do. I recommend that people create an environment of health. Surround yourself with healthy. Everything you can get your hands on from credible sources that will promote optimal health and weight loss in your life the right way. You want to reduce low level inflammation within the body to promote weight loss that will happen for your lifetime, not just for 21 days, but for your lifetime.
Now, do you focus with clients? Because this is one thing that I tell my patients.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, look, let's not even really worry about the weight or the weight loss. Let's look at repairing your metabolism and biochemistry first. Take care of that, and then the weight in and of itself will take care of that. Is that something that you look at and says is the correct thing?
I do. And in fact, they go hand in hand. So when I create an analysis for somebody, it is always with the intention of creating optimal health by reversing low level inflammation within the body. So they really are just like, I hate to use this, bread and butter. One doesn't go without the other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now we're going to jump into your favorite things. We want to
My
know
favorite
what
things.
Dr. Lori's favorite things are. So the first thing is, what is
Mhm.
your favorite food for health?
My favorite food for health. Well, it's actually new for me. It's cauliflower crust pizza.
Ooh,
That is so delicious that I mean, it's super easy to make. It is so good for you. And I have had non-believers try it and fall in love with it. That's how good it is.
is that the one you kind of what do? You shred the cauliflower and then
Right.
you make like a little you make a what do you call that? The pizza crust with that?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. So
I've seen that.
there's a couple ways you can do it, but essentially you can put it in a food processor, or
Mm-hmm.
you can shred it like you with a handheld shredder.
Mm-hmm.
You can chop it up. You can steam it, chop it up, and then you add egg and you add cheese, and you then pat it out into a crust form, bake it till it's crispy. Then you bring it back, add your any topping you want, and however you want it, put it back in the oven until the cheese melts that you've put on there, etc., until it's warmed and bubbly, and you're good to go. So that's my favorite healthy thing.
Love it. Do you have a favorite like supplement or a vitamin that you like to use with clients or yourself?
Yes, I do. In fact, I take everything I recommend to my clients. And the number one, I'm asked if I had to pick just one, it's very hard to do. Okay. But I would say one would be fish oil, a very good quality fish oil, because it saturates the cells within the body, the fat cells as well, so that much like taking a washcloth, holding it under a faucet, and saturating that cloth with water. The same thing happens when you take that direct therapeutic dose of fish oil on the fat cell. It releases that stored fat and creates optimal health as well.
Love fish oil.
I know it.
Um, Next one. What is your favorite exercise or fitness regimen?
What I like to do is it's called high intensity interval training, or HIIT for short. And I do body weight exercises. So Those are my favorite. So it involves pretty much about 15, 20 minutes of jumping up and down like a silly one. It's doing pull-ups, it's doing push-ups, it's doing squats, and mountain climbers and things like that, doing them all within a certain amount of time, resting, and then doing more. So you can do as many sets as you want, as many as you want, repetitions as you want. You can actually create your own. And I love it because, and for my clients too, because you start to feel the effects right away. If you've not done this, I suggest starting slowly. And you always start with where you are. You don't have to do anything drastic, but do what you can. And it's amazing to see their blood markers come back just so vastly improved after they start doing high intensity interval training. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. It's hard, but it's fun.
It's hard. Yeah,
If you're
definitely.
doing it right, it's hard.
What's your favorite like morning routine or daily ritual?
I love to have coffee while I'm watching the news with my dog right next to me. I have a big white golden doodle. She's a very shaggy dog with black eyes and a black nose, and she loves to just sit right next to me while I'm having my coffee in the morning. So that's how I start my day.
Perfect. What's your favorite health book? And it can be yours as well.
I love my book, and I don't mean to be braggadocious about it, but what I love about it for those that want to lose weight is that it creates weight loss while creating optimal health. And it's a book to last a lifetime, and the health effects last a lifetime.
Yeah, it is. It's very easy to read, very, very to the point.
Thank you.
And like you said, lasting a lifetime. It's very evergreen as well because it's not fad ridden, you know.
Right.
I've seen so many of these diet books out there, and they're all based upon fads, you know. But yeah, Dr. Lori's book is based upon
Thank you.
science.
It is. Thank you for that.
And then last one, what is your number one health tip?
Well, there are many, as you know.
Your favorite one?
My favorite one that will make the most dramatic effect in somebody's life is to avoid sugar. Do not minimize it. Do not use it in moderation, but to avoid it. And that is because sugar causes glycation or a caramelization of bodily tissue, which means that it's not only causing wrinkles and sagging skin, it's affecting, as I mentioned earlier, the health of your liver. It's caramelizing. If you see those the caramelized potatoes on the stove, the crunchy, crispy potatoes, that's pretty much what's going on inside the body. When sugar and proteins come together, they create this caramelization effect, and it changes the structure of the tissue within the body. And that means your organs, that means your skin, every tissue in the body. And it has a greater effect on some areas than it does others, but always the liver is affected. And the fat cells are as well. So when you stop ingesting sugar, which is the number one inflammatory food, if you can call it that, you will see marked results, not just in weight, but in your overall health and your energy. It's amazing.
Stay away from sugar.
Yes.
It's funny because what was it? Mary Poppins, right? She said,
right.
Spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. I'm like, you
that
know how many
so
people
true.
Actually like really took that to heart, and they said, well, you know, I'm helping my medicine go down. And I got this from one patient. She was being a smart aleck. And she goes, well, doc, you said, let your food be your medicine. So I'm taking my sugar with my food.
That is really funny. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a good one. Good one, Dr. Mike.
But stay away from the sugar, guys.
Yes.
So, Dr. Lori, thank you so much for spending this time with us on our interview today.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there any last words you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yes, I would like people to know that you do have choice in life, and that you are worthy of optimal health, and to be as lean as you want to be. You absolutely are. So value yourself and make different choices. You can do it.
Perfect. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my website at Dr. Lori Shemek, SHEMEK.com, drlorishemek.com. And my book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or anywhere books are sold.
Yes. In the show notes, we'll have a link to get the book because you guys got to get the book. I really like the book.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for spending this time with us. And we want to wish you well and everything. And looking forward to more what do you have in the works.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mike. It was really an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Lori, for that amazing episode. Hope you guys got some great information from that. You know, you guys heard a lot of the things that cause addictions to food and some of the tips that you can do to get away from those addictions. As we all know, food can be very, very addictive. And these are a lot of the things that are underlying that people don't really think about of what's really affecting their health, what's really affecting their weight. So thank you again, Dr. Lori, for all that amazing information. Head on over to the show notes for this episode, and there you can find the link to buy her book, FATflammation. You got to read it. There's so many great pieces of information in there that you can use to improve your life, improve your health. Now, if you guys are getting great value from this, please go over into iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us. It really helps this podcast to get noticed. And with that, our mission is to get this information out to the world because a lot of people are being, I guess, overfed with the wrong information and they're making the wrong choices. And this is the one thing that I see in practice every day is people are coming in and they're saying to me, well, I've been trying all of these different things, but nothing seems to help. And I'm not saying that a lot of the information out there is wrong. It's just that the wrong or the right information is used at the wrong time. So the whole goal of this podcast is to give you that information. And then there are some things that we're going to be doing, like some upcoming special things that will help you to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So stay tuned more for that. For more information, head on over to our website at www.whatupdocuniversity.com. Make sure you like, subscribe to our podcast, share this with your friends and family, and don't forget to leave us a review. We love all those reviews. And for those of you who have left us all those 5-star reviews, thank you so much. But till the next podcast, be well and aloha.